That weathered for sale sign isn't just faded from the sun. It's a tombstone marking where someone's American dream came to die. The paint peels like old skin, the grass has given up growing, and yet somehow the listing still calls this a prime investment opportunity. Are you serious right now? This isn't an opportunity. This is financial quicksand disguised as home sweet home. Over the next 20 minutes, we're taking a brutal road trip through 10 American cities where houses sit like abandoned cars on the side of the highway. Nobody wants them, nobody can afford them, and yet they keep piling up like a housing market graveyard. These aren't your typical bubble stories either. Some of these disasters are happening in places that were supposed to be safe havens. Our number one spot. It's a city where one phone call from Washington, D.C. could wipe out half your home's value overnight. And before you think this can't happen to you, remember that every single one of these markets was considered solid gold just a few years ago. Hit that subscribe button if you want the truth about where not to buy in 2025, and smash that like button if you're tired of real estate cheerleaders pretending everything is fine. Let's dive into America's housing horror show. Number 10. Boise, Idaho. You roll into Boise, and everything looks perfect on Instagram. Snow-capped mountains in the background, craft breweries on every corner, and that whole outdoorsy lifestyle thing that made everyone pack up from California during the pandemic. This was supposed to be the promised land for remote workers. Clean air, low crime, and housing prices that didn't require selling a kidney. But pull over and actually look around. Those for sale signs aren't fresh anymore. They're starting to look permanent, like they've accepted their fate. This isn't the boomtown TikTok sold you. This is the morning after the party, and the hangover is just getting started. The gold rush is over, and what's left behind is a trail of overpriced homes and some serious buyer's remorse. Boise became a victim of its own hype. A poster child for what happens when out-of-state money floods a market faster than the infrastructure can handle. Here's where it gets ugly. During the peak madness, homes were disappearing faster than concert tickets. Multiple offers, cash deals, people buying sight unseen. Now, according to recent market data, homes are camping out on listings for over 60 days, and that number keeps climbing like a bad fever. The inventory has exploded as people who bought at the top realize their remote work paradise came with some very real-world consequences. Market analysis shows that while prices haven't completely fallen off a cliff, they've softened significantly from their peak. Some zip codes are seeing corrections of 15% or more. But here's the real poison in the water supply. The median home price is still hanging around $500,000, while local wages are nowhere close to supporting that fantasy. It's like trying to fit a champagne lifestyle on a beer budget. The price-to-income ratio in Boise remains one of the most stretched in the entire country. It's a classic trap that plays out over and over again. Outside money pours in, inflates everything like a balloon, and then the locals get stuck holding the bill. The teachers, nurses, firefighters, and everyone else who actually keeps the city running, they've been completely priced out of their own hometown. This isn't a market correction we're watching. This is a slow-motion affordability crisis. Houses aren't selling because the fantasy has worn off. The dream is dead, and reality is settling in like a cold winter morning. Number 9. Austin, Texas. You cruise down Interstate 35 into Austin, past half-finished construction cranes that look like metal skeletons against the sky. The city still desperately clings to its slogan about keeping things weird, but the weird got bulldozed and replaced with something corporate and soul-crushingly expensive. This was supposed to be the next Silicon Valley, the tech migration destination where California refugees could get more bang for their buck while still working for the big boys. Instead, it's becoming a cautionary tale about what happens when an entire economy gets built on a single industry's whims. The tech giants who colonized this town are quietly packing their bags. The six-figure salaries that justified $900,000 price tags on three-bedroom houses, they're drying up faster than a puddle in a Texas drought. According to recent market reports, Austin's housing scene has experienced one of the sharpest downturns in the nation. Median prices have dropped over 18% from their peak. Houses that used to spark bidding wars are now sitting for months with giant price reduction signs slapped on them like clearance stickers. Builders are offering incentives that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. Free upgrades, cash back, rate buydowns, whatever it takes. And it's still not working. Why? Because the high-paying tech jobs that made a $900,000 bungalow seem reasonable are no longer guaranteed. Major firms are announcing hiring freezes and layoffs left and right. The pool of qualified buyers hasn't just shrunk, it's practically evaporated. But here's the killer punch that turns an unsold house into a financial anchor: property taxes. Texas doesn't have state income tax, so they absolutely hammer you on property taxes instead. You could be paying over $20,000 a year on a home that's actively losing value. It's like paying rent to own something that's bleeding money. The live music capital of the world is starting to sound like a funeral march for home equity. Number 8. Phoenix, Arizona. The drive into Phoenix feels like entering another planet. The air shimmers with heat waves even with your AC blasting, and you pass mile after mile of identical cookie-cutter subdivisions stretching toward the horizon like beige dominoes. This was sold as the new American frontier, where you could get a brand new house with a pool for the price of a studio apartment in San Francisco. But the construction dust is settling, and what's left behind is a terrifying silence. Phoenix is building itself into a corner, creating a massive oversupply of homes for buyers who are suddenly asking one very simple, very scary question: will there actually be water here in 10 years? The scale of oversupply is mind-boggling. Recent MLS data shows inventory has absolutely skyrocketed. The market is so flooded with properties that builders are reportedly offering six-figure discounts and still can't close deals. Some newly developed areas are already showing significant price declines from their peak. But the real problem isn't interest rates or economic cycles. It's an existential crisis of confidence. Buyers are reading the headlines about the Colorado River drying up. They know the state government has literally halted new housing construction in parts of the metro area because there isn't enough groundwater for the next 100 years. This isn't a typical market problem that gets solved with lower prices or better financing. This is a collision with geological reality. Every single one of those empty houses baking in the desert sun represents a colossal gamble that technology or miracles would solve a water problem that's been getting worse for decades. Now the bill is coming due. Houses sit empty, lawns turn brown, and swimming pools remain unfilled. It's a zombie market created not by financial crashes, but by the simple fact that you can't build infinite subdivisions in a finite desert. Number 7. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas shimmers in the distance like a mirage of neon and broken dreams. It's a city built on risk, spectacle, and the promise that everyone's a winner if they just keep playing. But the biggest gamble in Vegas right now isn't at the poker tables. It's in the suburban neighborhoods miles from the Strip, where thousands of investors bet on a never-ending stream of tourists and Airbnb cash. That party is brutally over, and the hangover is legendary. Just a few years ago, investors were snatching up properties like they were collecting poker chips. The short-term rental game seemed foolproof. Buy a house, throw it on Airbnb, sit back and watch the money roll in from an endless parade of bachelor parties and weekend warriors. Now the market is flooded with homes that were once profitable vacation rentals. Recent Realtor Association data shows a sharp spike in inventory in neighborhoods that were investor favorites. Days on market have more than doubled since the peak, and these aren't homes filled with family memories. They're empty shells with cheap vinyl flooring, generic gray paint, and furniture marks on the walls where someone tried to create the perfect Instagram backdrop. They were never meant to be lived in, only monetized. Now they're all hitting the market at exactly the same time. Clark County cracked down hard on unlicensed short-term rentals, hitting owners with massive fines and effectively shutting down the gray market overnight. This regulatory whiplash forced a massive sell-off of properties that suddenly went from cash-flowing assets to monthly money pits. The result? A zombie market of identical, soulless houses that all look like they came from the same furniture showroom. For investors trying to unload these properties, it feels like the worst bad beat in Vegas history. For anyone thinking of buying here, it looks like the house always wins, and you're not the house. Number 6. Jacksonville, Florida. You cross into Florida and might think you've dodged the bullet. This isn't Miami with its condo towers and cocaine money. This isn't Orlando with its theme park madness. Jacksonville feels different, more blue-collar, more real. It's a sprawling port city that always prided itself on being the affordable part of Florida. That affordability was the main selling point, the thing that brought families here when the rest of the state went completely insane with prices. Well, that affordability is now a marketing lie from a bygone era. The financial infection that started in South Florida has spread north, and it's hitting Jacksonville like a slow-moving plague. The zombie here isn't the house itself. It's your budget, which gets devoured the moment you sign the paperwork. The weapon of mass destruction? Insurance costs that have gone completely parabolic. Recent reports from Florida's insurance regulators show premiums in Northeast Florida skyrocketing. Some homeowners are seeing their bills double or triple in a single year. We're talking about increases from $3,000 to $7,000, sometimes more, for the exact same coverage. Jacksonville sits wrapped around the St. Johns River, a massive waterway that flows north and is dangerously susceptible to storm surge. FEMA has been aggressively redrawing flood maps, pulling thousands of homes into high-risk zones literally overnight. This hidden cost is paralyzing the market in real time. Market data shows that while listing prices appear stable, the actual number of completed sales is slowing to a crawl. Buyers are getting insurance shock during the closing process and walking away from deals. Recent Realtor Association reports indicate listings are sitting longer as buyers are forced to factor in an extra $600 a month just to keep the property insured. It's a trap disguised as opportunity. The house looks affordable on paper, but the total cost of ownership turns it into a financial nightmare. Number 5. New Orleans, Louisiana. You drive into New Orleans, and the city hits you like a wall of humid air mixed with music and magic. The smell of sweet olive trees, the distant sound of a brass band, the intricate ironwork on centuries-old balconies. For a moment, you understand why people fall in love with this place. But that romance is a dangerous distraction from a terrifying reality. This isn't just a city with flooding issues. This is a city being systematically abandoned by the insurance industry, the one business that makes homeownership financially possible. You could buy your dream shotgun house on a Tuesday, and by Wednesday find out it's become financially radioactive. This is ground zero for the insurance apocalypse. Major carriers, the household names you see advertising during football games, have been fleeing Louisiana like it's a sinking ship. According to state insurance department data, the government-run insurer of last resort has seen its policy count explode as private companies refuse to write new business. What does that mean in practical terms? If you can find coverage at all, you'll pay some of the highest rates in the nation for a policy that might not even exist next year. Real estate transactions are collapsing at the finish line because buyers literally cannot get properties insured, which is required for any mortgage. The market is seizing up in slow motion. Local MLS data shows homes sitting for months not because they lack charm or character, but because they lack a viable financial future. Buyers reach the closing table and realize the listing price was just the opening bid in a much more expensive game. It's homeownership held hostage by risk. The house isn't just sitting there collecting dust. It's waiting for that letter in the mail, the non-renewal notice that turns your biggest asset into your biggest liability overnight. Number 4. Beaumont, Texas. You roll into Beaumont, and the air is so thick with humidity you could practically swim through it. To your left, oil refinery towers belch steam into the sky. To your right, the landscape is flat, green, and waterlogged from recent storms. This isn't a city that flirts with natural disasters. It has an abusive relationship with them. People here don't discuss whether the next hurricane will hit. They plan for when it arrives. After years of being hammered by Harvey, Laura, and others, the financial infrastructure supporting the housing market is simply breaking apart. Buying a home here has become an act of defiance against basic mathematics. The risk is so high that private insurers are running for higher ground. According to the Texas Department of Insurance, this entire coastal region has become a red zone where major carriers refuse to write new policies. Homeowners are being forced onto the state's Windstorm Insurance Association, the insurer of last resort. Premiums have gone completely parabolic, with homeowners reporting annual bills of $8, $9, even $10,000 for basic coverage on modest homes. That's before factoring in mandatory flood insurance, because FEMA's latest maps show almost everything here sits in a flood zone. The local realtor board reports homes languishing on the market for over 100 days unless they're priced at bargain basement levels. Buyers are realizing the sticker price is just a down payment on a lifetime of anxiety and crippling insurance costs. You're not buying a home here. You're prepaying for your next demolition. The house sits and waits, not for a family to move in, but for the next storm system to form over the Gulf of Mexico. Number 3. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. You pull onto Ocean Boulevard, and it's a sensory overload. Neon-lit arcades, the giant sky wheels spinning against the horizon, endless rows of pancake houses, and seafood buffets advertising all-you-can-eat specials. It's a city built entirely on summer vacations and cheap thrills. For years, investors saw this place as a gold mine. Buy a beach house, throw it on Airbnb, and watch tourists fund your mortgage 12 months a year. That dream has become a full-blown nightmare. The market is so oversaturated with failed vacation rentals that it looks like a zombie apocalypse of empty houses, all listed by desperate owners at exactly the same time. Recent Coastal Realtor Association data shows inventory levels have absolutely exploded, driven almost entirely by investors trying to offload properties they can no longer rent profitably. What used to be a side hustle has become a financial anchor dragging owners underwater. Market analysis shows nightly booking rates have plummeted due to sheer competition volume. There are simply too many identical rental properties chasing the same seasonal tourist dollars. Positive cash flow has turned into monthly losses, forcing a massive sell-off. Recent listing data shows average days on market have nearly tripled from pandemic peaks, and over a third of all listings have had at least one price reduction. This market was propped up entirely by fantasy economics. The fantasy that a seasonal, low-wage tourist economy could support an infinite number of investment properties. It couldn't, and now reality is setting in like a cold Atlantic Ocean wave. These houses are rotting from the inside out, financially speaking. Each one represents a monument to a bad investment decision, bleeding money through mortgage payments, HOA fees, and ever-climbing coastal insurance premiums. This isn't a housing market anymore. It's a game of musical chairs where the music stopped and thousands of amateur landlords are left standing. Number 2. Cape Coral, Florida. You drive over the bridge into Cape Coral and enter what looks like an engineer's fever dream. It's a sprawling grid of man-made canals, more miles of waterways than Venice, Italy, they'll proudly tell you. Every house seems to have a boat dock. It's the waterfront lifestyle sold by the square foot. But the water that was once the main selling point has become the city's greatest threat. This isn't just a slow market we're looking at. This is a full-blown liquidity crisis, a city drowning in a sea of for-sale signs with almost no buyers in sight. Hurricane Ian didn't just physically damage the city. It financially broke it. The aftermath created a catastrophic failure of the insurance market, generating a doom loop of risk and fear that keeps feeding on itself. Recent Realtor Association data shows the inventory of active listings has more than tripled since the storm. Let me repeat that, tripled. We're talking about thousands of homes sitting on the market, many of them quick flips by investors who slapped some new drywall over water damage and are now trying to dump them on unsuspecting buyers. But the buyers aren't biting. Why? Because you either can't get insurance or the premiums are so obscenely high they make your mortgage payment look like pocket change. This has frozen the entire market solid. Recent market data shows homes sitting for well over 100 days, with price cuts becoming standard rather than exceptional. The dream of waterfront living has become a financial death sentence. You own a property that's actively losing value, costs a fortune to insure, and sits directly in the path of the next monster storm. These homes aren't just sitting empty. They're ticking time bombs of financial ruin, waiting for that next hurricane season to arrive. Number 1. Killeen, Texas. This is the end of the line, the most dangerous housing market in America. You drive into Killeen and realize you're not in a typical city. You're in a waiting room where every single building, every road, every house exists for one reason only: Fort Cavazos, the largest active-duty armored post in the United States military. That total dependency is what makes this the most fragile housing market in the country. This is where the bottom doesn't just fall out. The entire floor is built on a trapdoor controlled by bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. A recent analysis by financial researchers ran stress tests on vulnerable markets like Killeen. Their projection under a severe downturn scenario pointed to potential home value drops of up to 54%. That's not a typo. 54%. That's not a market correction. That's an extinction-level event for anyone's life savings. How is such catastrophic loss even possible? It's simple. Killeen's economy has a single point of failure: the federal government. If future base realignment commissions decide to downsize or relocate troops from Fort Cavazos, housing demand doesn't just soften. It evaporates completely overnight. The buyers, the renters, the entire economic engine gets loaded onto buses and shipped elsewhere. What's left behind is a ghost town of empty houses that nobody wants and nobody is coming to buy. Recent Fort Hood area realtor data already shows signs of stress, with inventory climbing and homes sitting longer than they have in years. Every for sale sign here represents a prayer that Pentagon officials don't change their strategic plans. The terrifying truth is that your entire financial future depends on decisions made by people you'll never meet, in meetings you'll never attend, for reasons that have nothing to do with your local market conditions. So there you have it. 10 cities where the American dream goes to die a slow, expensive death. We've toured tech ghost towns, insurance black holes, and military bases one budget meeting away from economic collapse. The lesson is crystal clear. The listing price is always a lie. The real cost is hidden in risks that nobody wants to discuss during the sales pitch. These aren't market corrections we're witnessing. These are structural collapses disguised as buying opportunities. Each one of these markets was considered rock solid just a few years ago. Each one had cheerleaders claiming prices would only go up. Each one had buyers convinced they were getting in at the perfect time. The truth is brutal but necessary. Sometimes a house isn't an asset. Sometimes it's just a very expensive trap with a nice front yard and a mortgage payment that never ends. Did we miss a city that's teetering on the edge? Is your local market a hidden paradise or a powder keg waiting to explode? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more brutal honesty about where not to put your life savings, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started on exposing the lies the real estate industry doesn't want you to hear. The next video reveals the warning signs that appear 6 months before any market completely collapses. Trust me, you don't want to miss that one.